This after Mali's president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, announced his resignation just hours after being detained by armed soldiers. His ousting following months of protest over corruption and economic mismanagement. But while the events have been met with jubilation inside of Mali, they have sparked alarm among international observers.
Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values. Respect for humanity.
Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup?
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We
Leading
stress
coups
core
are in our
values.
curriculum?
We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not.
So
civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 99 percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And I wonder how many people it takes to plan a coup. I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by The Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in assuring
but do you think it's
that
working?
they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago, you said we shared core values with Colonel Doumbouya. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively than doing this.
Every time there's a coup in Africa, Western media reacts the same way. They panic, they lecture, they moralize, they pretend to care about democracy. But where was that concern when African presidents were handpicked, financed, protected, and maintained by foreign powers? Where was that concern when African resources were looted for decades? Where was that concerned when African youths were unemployed, hopeless, and silenced? So in this video, we are going to talk about something honestly, not emotionally or blindly, but we are going to talk the truth. This is not a celebration of military rule because we have been seeing coups left, right, center. The recent one was coup was tried in Guinea, We have seen coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, most of the countries on Western Africa. So what I'm going to talk is not a celebration of military rule, but it is an exposure of why coups keep happening. This is Neo Africa, where we tell the real story of Africa. Now, the word coup is weaponized. In Western countries, when elite remove leaders through courts, media pressures, economic sabotage, and or legal loopholes, it is called checks and balances. In Africa, when power structures collapses under pressure, it is called barbarism. But a coup is not born overnight. A coup is the last symptoms of a long sickness. For example, when coup happened in Burkina Faso, it was a symptom of a long sickness that is happening in Burkina Faso. You know? So when this coup happened, that's why you see the Western countries are caring. That's where you see the African Union are there. Like, coup happens when institutions are captured. Coup happens when elections are threatened, are theoretical. Coup happens when leaders stop serving the people. Coup happens when foreign interest outweigh national interest. When youths lose faith in civilian system. So by the time soldiers appear on television, democracy has already died quietly. I'm not saying all coups are good. There's some coups that happen because some leaders want to take over power, or some people are using military to take over power. But this coup that have been happening lately is because democracy died long time. Now, there's a myth of African instability, and that's a lie. Let's dismantle that lie. Because Africa is not unstable by nature. Africa is not unstable by nature. Africa is deliberately destabilized. And countries with the most coups often have gold, they have uranium, they have oil, strategic military location. And this is not coincidence. This is geopolitics. Just look. Have you ever come across a coup maybe in East Africa, maybe in Kenya, leave alone that was tried to happen during the Moi era, in Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, you know. Let's say these East African countries, leave alone Rwanda and Burundi down there, these East African countries up here, it's very hard for a coup to happen here. Okay? Because we don't have gold, we don't have uranium, we don't have oil. You see that? Now, let me give you an example of Niger. Niger is one of the poorest countries on earth. Yes, Niger is one of the poorest country on earth. And yet, Niger supplies uranium that powers France's nuclear energy. France has lightened cities. Niger has darkness. So, when Nigerians say enough, the West doesn't hear justice. They hear laws of access. You know, they are losing access to the uranium. They are losing access to the gold. They are losing access to the oil, you know. So when ballots stop working, people look elsewhere. How? If elections changes nothing, if corruption grows, if presidents amend constitutions endlessly, if foreign companies own everything, then people stop believing in the process and start believing in force. And that doesn't mean that it is ideal. It means it is human, you know? It is human. Let's be clear. Not all coups leaders are saviors. Yes, we know that. Not all coups leaders are saviors. Some are opportunists. Some become dictators. Some betray the revolution. And Africa has been banned before. So this is not about romanticizing soldiers. This is about understanding why people are willing to gamble on them. Why people are willing to gamble on Ibrahim Traore. Why people are willing to gamble on Geita. The people are not stupid. Africans knows the risk. But when civilians' leadership become a puppet, When civilian leadership become a foreign puppet, even imperfect changes feel better than permanent humiliation. You understand what I'm saying? Now, let me tell you what scares the West the most. For example, it is not instability, it's not all that you see, but it is independence of the people. It is the unity of the people. They fear African nations rejecting foreign military bases. They fear leaders renegotiating exploitative contracts. They fear African youths rejecting Western validation. They fear Africa trading without permission. And that's why every coup is framed as a disaster. Okay? Even before outcomes are known. Now, when you compare the reactions, we have media manipulations and double standards. Because when coup happens in Europe or Latin America, complex political situation, when coup happens in Africa, it is back continent descending into chaos. Now, it is same event, but different language. And that language is not accidental. It keeps Africa psychologically inferior. Okay? Listen carefully here. You are not foolish for questioning systems that failed you. Okay? You are not foolish for questioning systems that failed you. But do not make mistake anger for strategy. Okay? Coups alone will not save Africa. We need to know that. But replacing one elite with another will not free Africa too. Africa doesn't need endless coups. Africa needs strong institutions. Africa needs economic sovereignty. Africa needs youth political education. Africa needs regional unity. Africa needs control of resources. So coups should be a warning, but not a lifestyle. So we need to have Pan-African solutions here. Imagine if African armies protected African people, not regimes. Imagine African trade stayed within Africa. Just imagine African leaders feared citizens more than foreign embassies. Imagine African youths were builders, not migrants. That Africa will terrify the world. So, allow me to say this. Coups are not that good. But coups happened because it's a desperate decision we need to do. You know? And for example, when you talk about coups, let me talk about Mali. Mali didn't just experience a coup. Mali experienced a psychological break from France. And for decades, Mali was called independence, yet French troops remained there. Mali was called independence, yet French companies dominated. French was still influencing the country, you know. The decisions were coming out of French or France. But insecurity increased, terrorism spread, poverty depends. And the people asked a simple question. If you are here to help us, why are the things getting worse? Okay? Foreign presence does not equal protection. Foreign supervision does not equal development. So when Malian soldiers removed leadership tied to external interest, ordinary people celebrated, not because they love guns, but because they finally felt heard. You know? Burkina Faso is not just a country. Burkina Faso carries the unfinished spirit of Thomas Sankara. Sankara rejected debt slavery. Sankara, he rejected foreign domination. Sankara, he was assassinated for rejecting all this. So when Captain Ibrahim Traoré rose, Africans didn't just see a soldier. Africans saw a memory revived. And why is the West nervous? Not because Traoré is perfect, but because he speaks a language Africa understands. And this language is self-resilience, national dignity, youth empowerment, resource control. That language is dangerous not to Africa, but to exploitative systems. When you talk about Niger exposes a lie of partnership. You know, how can a country power Europe yet remain in darkness? A country powers the whole France, but still it is in darkness. So when Niger coups challenged uranium contracts, the West didn't respond with dialogue. They responded with threats. Because of what? Because when Africa questions contracts, empires feel naked. That's the reality. Again, we have Gabon. It shocked many people. Not because of the coup, but because of how long one family ruled. Decades of power, decades of wealth concentration, decades of foreign backing. So when Gabonese soldiers intervened, they exposed a truth. Africa doesn't only suffer from foreign control, but it also suffers from internal collaborators. And the hard truth is, some African leaders are not victims. They are middle managers of exploitation. So they protect foreign institutions or interest in exchange for personal security and luxury. And that betrayal creates rage, and rage eventually erupts. And when rage erupts, we have coups. Now, we have democracy here, but sometimes I say it is a fake democracy. Now, what fake democracy looks like? It looks like election with the outcome that we all know, like what happened in Tanzania. Fake democracy is where opposition leaders jailed or silenced. Fake democracy is where foreign embassies are picking winners, where media controlled by elites, where constitutions are rewritten endlessly, where democracy becomes theater. You know? But the military are the protector or the problem? That's my question. Is the military protector or the problem? That's the balance we must maintain. The military is not a long-term solution, but in many African states, the military is the only institution not fully captured. That doesn't make soldiers saints, it makes them strategic actors. Now, as I finish, a warning to military leaders. African people are watching. If you replace corruption with corruption, if you replace puppets with uniforms, or you silence citizens, history will not be kind to you. Okay? That's a warning to you. And the diaspora must understand this. The Africans in diaspora, do not judge the comfort. Do not judge the coup or from comfort. You do not queue for jobs in your own land. You do not watch foreign companies extract your future. You do not bury children lost to hopelessness. Listen first, then analyze. Africa's struggle is not theoretically. It is lived daily. Okay? Now, allow me to finish by saying this. Africa must move from reaction to construction. That means we need to educate youth politically, building strong civilian institutions, ending personal cults, promoting regional defense cooperation, controlling strategic resources, and power must return to the people, not uniforms, not embassies, and not corporations. Africa is not confused. Africa is confronting reality, and reality is uncomfortable. For those who profited from silence, this awakening cannot be reversed. This is New Africa.